Hello, and how are you guys doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Operation Recall. This is going to be the second episode. And of course, lovely Halo, unable to make it last second, so you're going to have to deal with me on the hosting position. But of course, I'm joined by Lord Playful. Was with us
What's
last week. How you doing?
doing good, man? Just happy to be here today. And we got a new guest, Stronskis. Why don't you introduce him and let's go from there?
Of course, we got the special guest, which is going to take up a little bit of time here just talking to him. It's going to be manOFsnow. Buddy, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to go over some of these topics with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I guess we can just jump right into it, of course. You are what we would call a pro player. Do you think that's apt to say? Professional player? I mean,
Yeah, I played for a salary.
there you go. That's exactly what qualifies. I like
Yep.
it. And so I just want to jump on with you, just ask a little bit about your past, specifically with Overwatch. I'm assuming you were a beta player, correct?
No, I didn't
Oh,
play in
you
the beta.
weren't.
Well,
Ooh.
I played in the open beta.
Open doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Right. So I didn't play in the closed at all. Unfortunately, I was stuck playing TF2 during that time.
Mm-hmm. A
I was
lot of us here
streaming.
know that for sure.
Yeah.
Real bummed out about that. So you got in the scene during open beta and during launch, and you didn't really see. I didn't see anything coming out of you right off the bat. I remember seeing you a lot in Cal League. Specifically, you had the original team of Snow that you played on. Was that your first team, or did you just end up making that a little later on after a couple teams went by and you're like, just this isn't working. I'm gonna make my own.
No, actually, I'll give you the whole story from this
Give it to
from
me.
the very
Give it to
start.
me. That's what we need.
So, pretty funny actually. I played a lot of TF2, and the TF2 community looked at Overwatch with some disdain. They, it was something that could potentially like kill the community, and in a sense, it kind of did. But whatever, we're not gonna worry about that. I told my community, I'd been streaming for a while. I told them, I'm definitely not going to be playing Overwatch, not buying it, never getting into it, no need to worry. My friend actually pre-ordered. I was like, look, man, like maybe like just you don't need to pre-order it. And throughout all of that, I still got talked into playing into the open beta, and I played in it, and I thought it sucked. I hated it. I played like only Tracer and like some McCree, and I just didn't enjoy it. I was like, well, I don't like this game. And so it came around to releasing time. I was like, I gotta, all right, we're getting the game, we're playing it, and we're gonna see what happens. So on release day, I swap over from TF2, boot up Overwatch. Only takes about 30 minutes to launch the game. I was super impressed on how fast Blizzard was able to start that off. Other game launches have not been nearly as smooth.
Especially
And I
not
play.
recently. Oh
Yeah.
no.
But I play and I play and I play. I play for like 10, 12 hours a day, and I just learn the game. I learn the game. Ranked isn't out yet, so it's really just quick play. And I couldn't really take it too seriously because I knew that quick play wasn't the competitive format and it didn't even like closely resemble it. And even still, Blizzard is iterating on the competitive mode in Overwatch, still getting closer to what is actually like healthy for the game. But so I played for a while, and I really really just wanted to play in a team, and I was kind of getting a feel for like I had some potential with this game. I've played other games in the past, and I haven't played at a pro level. I was playing Overwatch, and I was like, I was getting paired up with some really good people. I think I have a screenshot. And this may be some foreshadowing for later, but it had Internet Hulk in my game. I was like, this guy's a pro player. Holy crap! Maybe I could play professionally. So I kept playing in the quick plays, and then Rank came out, and I played there. Actually, before Rank came out, I joined a team. I forgot about that. Joined a team called Team Generic, and I played on that team for a bit. And it turns out they were just kind of like a group of friends, and I took the game like super super seriously, and we kind of like parted ways. We just had different goals. They wanted to hang out. I wanted to like pursue like being the best. So I left that, and I just started streaming again, doing my own like kind of thing. And so I streamed for a little bit, and I had some people come in and try to recruit me, like, hey, like, you're pretty good. Can you play this? Can you play that? I was like, sure, sure. And I did some tryouts and didn't really enjoy the teams. I played with another team, and, they asked me, can I play Reinhardt? And, I said yes. I totally couldn't, but I still wanted to try, playing with the team. And I go in for Route 66 was the map. And I think I played either defense or attack. I can't remember. Anyway, so we played, and I was on Rhine, and I think I did okay, but I didn't like do super well by any means. It's hard to as Rhine anyway. So we played, and then somebody else got subbed in, and then I go back in, and we play on Nepal. But this time they want me on Zarya. Now, Zarya's my forte, and it always has been. I've always been very strong on that character. And it's actually just recently that I've begun branching out into other characters and actually getting really, really good with them. But I knew the moment they put me on Zarya, I was going to do really well. So I play, do really well, and they offer me a spot. And that was Helix Esports. We played under that brand for a little bit. And then we left that org as a team. Roster changes here and there, and we became Team of Snow. Not just because of me, but because there's another player called Snow, who now I believe plays for Toronto Esports. So he had to focus on school, so he had to peace out. So we were Team of Snow, and then we merged with what it was Good Vibes. That was Connor J, Jesus, Stin, Ginger Pop, and I can't remember the last person, but that was their team.
I did remember the roster though. Yeah, man,
yeah.
These
Pop
old
now
names,
plays for them now.
They're feeling.
Yeah.
It brings back the nostalgia.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, if you asked me who the good teams are, it's going to be totally when I was playing. Complexity they were a very solid roster, and now
they're definitely a top 10 team. And
yeah,
now.
But I played on that, so when we merged, we became Elusive. And then we played for a while, proved ourselves, and got signed to Kingdom. Played for that for a little bit, and then we went and we moved to Renegades. And then that's kind of where my story ends in terms of being a pro player. Those are all the rosters I've played on.
There you go. Nice. God, the old names really do. Back when I remember scrimming, I don't think it was Elusive. I don't think I ever scrimmed you. I remember. Specifically when we would watch and cast Cow. Especially the very first 3v3 tournament I played in.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. It's like, oh my God, it's just the Zarya player. And I think it was just like, oh, that fucking just godlike Zarya player. And it was the worst. That's how you were known, I remember specifically. And this guy.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you. This is probably people a lot of curious too. I think there's a large population of players who don't really break into that professional scene. At most we're top 500 players, we're solo queue beasts, and you have to really understand your own gameplay, and of course you work around with the pug. Zarya ult at the same time with someone else. But what's it really like when you join a team? When you start scrimming, is it a totally different environment? Or you kind of doing the same thing that you're doing in top 500 competitive solo queue? How much time is spent dry running? So again, the real question is just what's the environment like when you're actually joining a pro team, you're scrimming, as opposed to the solo queue life?
Well, first of all, you're spending 6 to 8 hours, possibly even more, depending on the team. If you're getting ready for a tournament, maybe you'll be scrimming for 12, 14 hours a day. You're spending a huge amount of your day with the same people, doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it gets very repetitive, and it gets mind-numbing. And it gets tough at times. That's the first thing that I'd say. If somebody's wondering what's it like to be on a pro team, it's a grind. It's a brutal grind. Sometimes you could play, you could practice for a solid month, have very good scrim, all of your scrim partners are right at your level, maybe a little bit better if you want to get punished for any small mistakes, so you can really get good at a certain like comp or something, maybe the team is a little bit worse than you because you need to try new things out and you don't need to get punished as hard. But they're right like at your range, so every single scrim you have is an effective one. You could do that for a month, and you could go in a tournament and you can get rolled because maybe a comp just didn't work out. Maybe it was a best of one. Maybe you got in a best of one. Some team runs a gimmick or a cheese comp and they beat you, and you're a pro team and they're an amateur team, and you just have to be ashamed. It's tough.
Mhm.
I mean, like I could specifically call out NRG. They've been struggling. That's just kind of like what's evident. That being said, I do like the NRG roster. I'm very good friends with some of them. I know that they're going to improve a lot. Many teams have made huge like leaps and bounds of improvement.
I just want to look at
over the last
right
few
there.
months.
Yeah.
I mean, Liquid, Selfless. Who else? I mean, there's just like these huge power surges and power drains that have happened. Phase, Complexity, and the scene just changes so fast. It's crazy. Other than the grueling grind that happens, and speaking more in terms of in-game, one of the things I noticed that really drives maybe like your top 500 players, let's say like top 100, those are like the people that are mechanically like they're good.
Mhm.
The thing that separates those players from like true legitimate people that have a ton of experience at the pro level
Mhm.
is your knowledge. It's that experience that you gain. It's playing against people that are playing the same game, the same intelligent, like we have these ults, but we're gonna try to play it this way because we know they have Genji Blade, we know they have Nano, we have Nano, and like let's say that you have Visor, right? And you want to
Mhm.
save that for next fight because maybe they haven't quite built the blade yet or something. So you just want to grab. Like let's say you have Grav, you have Visor, you have Nano. Okay.
Mhm.
Normally you just like in ranked in top 500, you would just Nano the soldier and he'd Visor and it would be fine. But
Right.
next fight when they have Nano Blade and all you have is a Grav, that doesn't help you out at all. So you use the Grav by itself and you put in all the damage you can and just kill one or two people, maybe three, and you force their push away and you just stall them out to the next time. They can push and they come in with the Nano Blade and you Visor it, you Nano the Visor, and you deny that ult. Then you deny that huge ult combo.
Right.
So
So
it's go ahead.
it sounds like it's just just it just there's layers of intricacies, being
Mm-hmm.
smart with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that no, I think that really answers the question too, because in pug play it's just like, oh my god, I got my ultimate. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
one dimensional. It's like, Zara, do you have your ultimate? I got my ultimate. Let's do it and let's win.
Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking about that next step. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really cool to hear. And actually, it's a topic that we actually discussed last week too, about when you said you're playing with the same amount of people and over again. I think that just goes to show that chemistry really has to be you guys really have to enjoy playing with each other. You're spending what you said, 6, 8, 10 hours playing with the
Mm-hmm.
same people.
Mm-hmm.
You enjoy them. Like you think they're cool people. You respect them, and I can't imagine if you don't like someone, you hold a grudge. Like that's just unhealthy. So
Mm-hmm.
I just have one actually final question. Based off of what you said,
Mm-hmm.
you
Sure.
mentioned the term kind of like making small mistakes and capitalizing on it. For
Mm-hmm.
for players who don't really understand what that means, can you kind of explain what a small mistake might be and how a team might capitalize on that?
Sure. Let's see. Small mistake. I'm an off tank, so a lot of any in-game examples probably are coming from that perspective. That
Sure.
would be like a Zarya, Diva, Winston, Hog, um, Arissa, I guess at this point. Um, let's say you are the attacking team on Gibraltar and you are pushing in to Hangar. Okay, you've already capped the card is like halfway through or on the other side.
Yep.
The enemy team is all on top of the ship,
Gotcha.
and you are pushing in through the catwalk upper right. A
Okay.
small mistake is to not defense matrix in and make sure that the enemy that is going to be aiming at the walls around the team,
Mm-hmm.
making sure you have to eat that, because if you don't
Mm-hmm.
hit that, that's a 4-man nade. They
Mm-hmm.
dive you, engage you, and you lose that push. They get tons of ult charge, and there's nothing you can do.
Gotcha.
That's a small mistake. Another small mistake. Playing in front of your Reinhardt shield just a little bit, and you get slept as Roadhog. You get pulled and killed. That's a snowballed fight.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like sorry, I just punched my mic. Bad uses of abilities. Whether like as Zarya, putting your barrier on a Reinhardt seconds before Genji goes up for to use a Nano Blade, and he comes back down, gets flashbanged, charged, and killed. You just have to. Everything has to be used for a reason, for a very good reason. Throwing out your hog hook just randomly out of shield because you think, oh, maybe the Reinhardt's going to drop his shield, when you could have waited 5 seconds, broken the Rein shield, and then pulled the Rein. Stuff like that. Maybe it's Antinade. You take some chip damage, you're down 50 health, and you nade yourself, and then the enemy team dives you, and you have nothing to help yourself. Those are small mistakes. And it's like if I'm playing at a high level with a team, and we see that there's Zarya use projected barrier on their Rein in order to get some energy, our first thought is engage them as soon as that barrier is done, because they have nothing to protect their Rein. Their Rein could countercharge us, but he's on the ground without anything to keep him safe from an Antinade. That is how you capitalize on mistakes. And it just gets better and better. Maybe that Genji used Reflect 4 seconds ago, and he still has time left on the cooldown. You can abuse that. You can force him to dash away, and he has no cooldowns. And it's going to take even more time to get heals and stuff. And then as he's getting heals, you push and you go to some random place, and Genji can't really do anything. He could potentially use his ult if he has it to dash to wherever the fight's going on. But there are just so many vulnerabilities that you can exploit. That at a pro level, you have the game sense to see what's going on and capitalize on that. Those players that can do that can punish the mistakes, those are the players that get ahead.
That's so good, man. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people would appreciate just those, that insight. And I think players would be able to definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. It really is who. Now this is an opinion of mine. I believe that Overwatch is a team game. That sounds kind of dumb. You might think, well, so is CS, so is TF2.
Oh, not even close.
So is League, so is Dota. Overwatch is very heavily based on team play. And I tell this to everybody. The thing that separates top 500 players from pro players is the fact that you tell your teammates how to enable you. You don't just high noon, for example, and just assume, okay, Ryan's going to shield me or Diva's going to eat for me. You don't assume that. You tell them to do that stuff for you. And that is how you succeed. Ube was notorious for this on LG when we played against him. He would always hook us at the very start of the match. We called him the Ube hook, Just expect the Ube hook. It's at the very start, that kind of thing. But he had his Rein with him. The Rein shielded him just at the right time so he could get that hook off. Actually in a ranked game today, I pulled out this specific example. I said, hey, guys, the thing that separates you from pro players is the fact that, you need to ask for people to help enable you. I said, check this out. Rein, walk forward, come to your right a little bit, shield for me. He did that. I went for a hook, and we picked a Rein, and we made an entrance into Hanamura, which is a really tough point to break into. It's a small example, but telling people what you're going to do can, it really help them to help you. Let's say that you're a Pharah and you're going to ult an enemy team from behind. Yeah. Just saying that allows your team to engage the enemy team at the front, so that the Pharah isn't pulling so much attention. There are two uses of pretty much any ult in this game, or some ults in this game, we'll say. They are as a CC or a damage. Let's say that you use Genji Blade, okay? Mm-hmm. And you Nano Blade your Genji into the enemy team and you don't push. Genji is pulling all the attention from the enemy team. They're using cooldowns to make sure he doesn't get any value out of the blade, and he probably won't find any value out of the blade because your enemy team isn't applying pressure. Go back 5 seconds. Your team now applies pressure to their front line prior to the Genji Blade going through. Their tanks are tied up. They can't help with their back line. Genji more or less has free reign over the supports, and is going to be able to get kills. Getting enabled by your teammates is how you succeed.
That's so good. Wow, that really is good, and I can only imagine, kind of looping it back to my first question to you. And are these the discussions that you guys kind of have as like a team, or do you feel it actually kind of just, do you guys kind of just gain this knowledge through scrims? Like it's kind of like you learn as you play.
Yeah, so it is kind of that. Sometimes you have somebody watching that's very analytical.
That's right.
They could be helping out, saying, hey, you guys didn't necessarily do this. I think if you try to approach it, in this manner, it'd be a lot more helpful. That person, this analytical person, doesn't necessarily have to be, a pro player themselves. It could just be someone that just understands things. There's that way of going about it. And I like to stress for anybody, if you're very analytical, right, you could coach. You don't necessarily have to be, top 500. You don't have to be top 10. You don't have to do any of that. You just have to understand what's going on in the game. And the more you watch, the more you'll learn, and the more you could actually coach your team. So a little nugget of wisdom there. That being said, a lot of this knowledge comes out from actually talking amongst, your team, doing VOD reviews, making sure, like one thing that a lot of people don't actually utilize are during a VOD review are the comms.
Ooh. Yeah, you were just talking about the comms earlier too, allowing each other to enable each other, yeah, so, comms, dude, that seems like to be definitely a reoccurring theme, like how, and I would dare even say how to make more efficient comms. I don't know if you ever watch or play League of Legends, but sometimes we're allowed into their comms, and I kind of find it funny, but you just hear them, they're like, attack this, attack this, attack this. They're just yelling at each other, So like, I think that's pretty cool. But I guess my question to you now is, like, what are comms like in a pro scene? Are you guys pretty much just saying like, dive now, dive Reinhardt now, or Zarya shield is just over, like you were saying, like the small stuff, capitalize on his mistakes. So I think I just think that's really cool.
Sure. So, there are some key things I need to point out in terms of comms. Generally, you have alt trackers, you have shot callers, rotation callers. That kind of happens. But the main thing about this is that you have a shot caller. Oh, you have a shot caller, target caller, alt caller. Okay. Let's say you are walking out of spawn. The shot caller is saying, okay, we're going to push this side. 3 people go this way. 2 people go this way. I want you on the last guy. I want you going on the flank. Make sure that we're scouting out this person, try and find them, and we're going to just try and dive them. Okay. So you guys push forward, someone is saying, oh, this guy's here. Somebody else says, oh, that guy's there. Hey, our target's right there. We can dive them. And okay, so you go back and you say, okay, dive in 3, 2, 1, diving. I'm low. I'm dropping back for heals. Somebody else says, target. Target this guy. Maybe somebody else is in a totally random fight somewhere else, and you say, this guy's low, this guy's dashable. That's a very important call. Genji players love to hear that term. Because they dash that person, they get the reset, and they dash back into the fight, and it's free for them.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I actually haven't played competitive in a couple months here, but now, I know dive is actually very in the meta, however you want to call it right now. What are some priority targets to dive, man? I mean, are you trying to dive, healer? I mean, obviously healers are going to be smart. They're going to be in the back. I mean, is dive, can you dive anybody? Can you dive the Reinhardt? I mean, like in a dive comp, who's the most ideal target to dive? Are you trying to give up your own positioning to get to the back? Yeah.
So that's actually a good question because not too many people know the answer. Generally, so if you have a dive v dive, it's a mirror matchup, rather I'll say. Let's say it's Pharah Mercy v Pharah Mercy. Then you also have like a Tracer. You have a Winston. We'll throw a Diva in there. You have a Lucio, right?
Right.
The only people that are actually on the ground are Winston, Diva, and Lucio. Can you dive a Diva? Not really. Can you dive a Winston? Kind of. Can you dive a Lucio? A little bit. So it's basically, you don't really have a good choice. But if you are diving against that kind of comp, you kind of have to go for like a Lucio. You kind of have to go for like a Winston. And it sucks because they're bad targets.
Is Fair Mercy now considered dive? Because on my impression, maybe this is outdated, but dive
Mhm.
always to me meant, like Tracer, Genji, Zenyatta. You can even go Winston. Do you consider Fair Mercy dive?
Um, kind of. So they have the capability of somewhat diving. One of the things that makes the Fair Mercy strong right now is the fact that, everybody that would normally be diving dives,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Fair Mercy follows up. The space is made by the tanks.
Ah.
The Tracer deals with the backline. Pharaoh rolls in and just deals damage. This is something that I did on Renegades as Diva. I tied up the tanks a ton, so they couldn't really deal with anything. This allowed Mangachu time and time again to just roll over and not get pressured by anything. It allowed him to just hit rocket after rocket. Now, he's naturally just an amazing Pharaoh, probably one of the best, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I always tried to make it my goal, as the off tank, to make sure that the DPS players kind of had an easy game to just do what they wanted to do. You have Zarya at 100 charge, deals 190 damage per second. Soldier is at 200 and doesn't need to get charged up or anything. All he has to do is to make sure that he has recoil control and is trying to hit a headshot every now and then, and he does more damage than Zarya very easily. McCree, damage is insane. He can, I think it's 140 per. No. I think it's 2 shots per second, so it goes up to
Mhm.
280.
Mm-hmm.
So he, 2 headshots, and that's a
It's
kill.
good DPS. Yeah, dead support.
Exactly. So, the DPS characters in this game are just set up to do more damage, to do more than the off tanks. Can you carry as an off tank? Sure. You can hit a hook as Hog, get a pick at the start of a fight. Zarya can get fully charged and just beam stuff down for 20 seconds and build 2 Gravitons. That's possible. But DPS players or DPS characters just have more consistency. Let's say someday you're off and your barriers aren't good as Zarya. McCree still does the same damage. Zarya wouldn't do the same damage, but McCree did. Soldier did. Tracer does. That kind of stuff.
So on off tanks, it's a lot more about that utility, I've noticed. I mean, I'm an off tank player myself, and I don't do Zarya for damage. You never really did. It's always about saving those shields when it's really important. Getting that charge is nice and all, but if you're only using your shields, your barriers on, say, a Roadhog or a Reinhardt who's just sitting there with his shield down just to get energy for you, I've always, both playing and when I've been coaching teams, I've had to tell players that just like, no, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. The whole point is you're saving your DPS, you're saving your supports from the Roadhog picks, from any kind of ultimate. That's where it's really big.
So I'll touch on that real quick. One important concept I like to present is aggression. Now, I was interviewed by Sideshow at one point, and in the interview, I said aggression is king, and I stand by that. That statement came out, I believe, a bit before Selfless really made their debut. I'm not too sure, but anyway. I had this statement: aggression is king, and I always try to push my team to be more aggressive. And they said, "No, it's not safe. Don't do that. It's too close to their spawn." And you have teams like Selfless that are literally at their spawn doors, and they're finding success with that strategy. Aggression is totally king. Now, the contrasting idea is being too safe. Staying on point and only on point, making sure that you're always grouped in the corner. That has your team giving up what could otherwise be advantages. And you don't want to give up advantages because at a pro level, the other teams are going to capitalize on that mistake. They're going to capitalize on the fact that you're not holding a choke or holding forward at all or spawn camping at all. If you have those advantages, you have to take them. You have to capitalize on them yourselves, or you lose that advantage. And then the game, the game pace sways into the enemy team's favor. The classic example is having a Zarya Graviton eaten by a defense matrix. That is how you just move the game, the momentum into the other team's favor. But tying it back to what you talked about, being too passive could lead to you losing an advantage. If you hold your barriers only for when the Roadhog hooks, yeah, you're going to be a pretty low energy, and Zarya really does need energy. So, from Zarya player to Zarya player, I'd urge you to use berries a bit more often, have them be smart barriers. You know,
It's
get
the give and
yourself an
take.
advantage. But do make sure that you try to. So real quick, I'll just mention Roadhog's Hook has an 8-second cooldown. Another ability in the game that has an 8-second cooldown is Arya's Barrier.
Hmm.
So you time those two out and you just match them.
That's
It
funny.
you
That's
know, if
good.
Roadhog misses a hook, you throw that barrier out, dude. You throw it out at generally the same time, get 20-30 charge, good enough, dude.
Hmm.
And you wait for that next hook to come out, and you're gonna have your barrier up. And it's all gonna be good. You know, even then, maybe you toss it on a Reinhardt that charges in. That's very valuable. One thing Complexity used to do really well, they basically abused our front line. You know, they would charge on Ryan, we would have to counter charge. If you don't have your barrier up as Zarya and you try to get some energy from it earlier, your Ryan's going to go to the ground. He's not going to have anything to get shielded from the Enonade, and they're going to clean him up, and then they're going to kill everybody else on your team.
I do remember that was super popular right back before the Zenyatta nerfs. It was where you could literally kill anyone that you wanted to. It didn't matter what target it was. It didn't matter how much healing they got. They were dead, as long as you focused with your team. And that was super super popular to just bully frontline. And that was before Ana too, wasn't it? So there was, if I'm correct, that was still before Ana.
Oh,
I mean, I can't.
In my example, we have Ana, but yeah, I remember Zen. When Zen had 50% damage on his Discord.
Yes,
yeah, that was not a fun time for Hog players.
That was pretty nutty. Nope.
That was not good.
So this has turned into a little bit of little Overwatch life lessons with manOFsnow, but I think we're gonna move on a little bit. I want to talk to you about which I think you're trying to move away from, if I'm correct. Team of Snow version 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a little project, you could say, that you created. You had a ton of applications, if I remember, to join this team.
Yeah.
What was it, like 500-ish or something crazy?
Yeah, I think it was over 400. It might have ended up closer to 500, but it was definitely a huge amount of people that applied, which was very interesting for me.
Yeah, so that must have been a hell of a time trying to sift through that many people. At a certain point, you're like, oh, you're plat. Sorry, dude. You gotta go. Probably a decent amount of that. But you ended up picking up a pretty solid roster. I knew a lot of these guys and played with a lot of these guys. They're particularly when I would talk about Bikeage, Stan, who then renamed Toy, and then those guys had played on so many teams.
Yeah.
And I would say that in the case of and Toy, they were definitely characters, we can say. And so was that an issue as far as meshing between, I know now that Toy is gone. He has left the roster. And was there an issue with meshing between those guys just because they had pretty, I don't want to say toxic because they weren't, but they were very blunt and they had very little filter. Was there an issue with meshing with Team of Snow?
I don't think so. I don't think the team comms ever got too bad. Again, I had always been in comms with the team. Every single scrim, every minute of every scrim, except for like 1 or 2 hour period. I was in comms every single night, all the time, always listening. It even just slips a little bit out of hand, and I say, "Hey, knock it off. Don't be bad." So that was never really a problem, just because I kept such a careful eye on it. So I didn't want it, I didn't want it to be a problem. So I just nipped it in the bud and made sure, couldn't happen. That being said, it was only very infrequently that somebody would tilt a little bit too hard. And I would have to talk to someone, be like, "Hey, man, you really got to cool it down. You can't do stuff like that. Please in the future, stay focused."
Which I will be fair, that I think that happens to pretty much every team, especially at like an amateur level. that they don't get paid to do that. So that's actually that's good to hear that those guys might have grown up a little bit since I've played with them, because they're all good dudes. At least the guys that I knew. They're all awesome dudes, but they would definitely tilt a little bit. And so now you are looking to get more back into the professional scene, though, moving away from coaching Team of Snow,
Mm-hmm.
and like doing a whole rebrand kind of deal.
Well, sorry, what was your last question?
And you're planning on doing like a whole rebrand of that team and just kind of moving away from it.
Oh, okay. So basically, what kind of happened? I tried really hard to, work with Team of Snow. The problem that I encountered, though, was that we were playing better and better teams because our team was getting better and better. And in order for scrims to be competitive, your scrim partners need to be at your level. And as you're playing better and better teams, you get fewer and fewer opportunities to stream the scrim because people don't, they don't want to know. It's not even like hiding secret strats. It's like, you don't want everybody to know that you're weak at this certain map. You don't want everybody to know you're weak at this certain round in a cough, because that could be abused. You don't want people to just have every bit of information on your team, which is why, VODs are so useful of players and scrims. And it's kind of like why I've tried to keep a hold on all of them. You go through, and let's say that you're looking at something. Well, I'll cut it short. But basically, you can look at VODs and see mistakes that players make. You can use that against them in games. So that's just like the short of it. Anyway, so I tried spending time with Team of Snow, and it just turned out that I didn't have the time to divert to that. My stream was suffering too much, and I stream full time. It's how I make my living, and it was really like it was kind of like withering away. So eventually, just recently I said, hey guys, I really got to take care of my own business. Hope you guys understand. You guys need any help, let me know, and I'll be around.
Alrighty, no, that makes complete sense. I mean, you can't exactly coach a team if you're on the streets. So that's kind of what happened, and I saw that they were talking about renaming the team as well, just because you aren't really going to be there in full supervision. And so, are they still going to be looking for a new coach? Then is that going to be how this is going to work? Okay.
Yeah, I would hope so. So I don't know. I don't really know too much of what's going on there. There's like, I would hope, that they have a coach. I would hope that they have a manager. At the end of the day, it really does have to be the players that are kind of like worrying about that stuff. Where they want to take this team. They have to show the initiative of going for these things. Not everything can be given. They have to like show drive in that sense. That's just kind of like how the ball rolls in my opinion.
Yep. Well, I asked that because my personal belief is I feel that it's so important to have a coach or to have an analyst, just somebody on the sidelines helping out a team. That support staff is, in my opinion, what makes a lot of these top 2, top 3 teams, is just having that support staff there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to know.
Totally agree with that.
Well, I think that we have now spoken about you a little bit enough, Mr. manOFsnow.
Absolutely.
And I think we're going to be looking at some things that have been going on this week in Overwatch. Cue the little news music. Of course, podcast has been recorded on April 25th. I forgot to mention. I should mention that at the beginning of the show, This makes sense. And so some of the stuff is probably going to be a little bit behind, but I think a very big one is going to be Envious. Probably the one of the most popular teams. Internet Hulk is moving over to a coaching position, and not for Envious.
Right.
The contract ran up for Internet Hulk, and he did end up leaving. I think there was a bit of a messy situation there, if I'm correct, but I
okay.
didn't look into it enough. But either way, his contract came up, and he moved over to Laser Kittens for about 3 days, and then moved over to an analyst for Rogue, debatably the best team in the world right now, for Apex Season 3. So they will definitely be going back to Korea, which makes sense. I think that's where the money's at if you can afford to go there. And can get invited in, of course. So, Internet Hulk is an interesting guy. I think he's one of the smarter guys in Overwatch, so I do like that he's going, at least as a player. So I like that he's going over to a coach. I have spoken to him a few short times. And he just seems like he's got it all up there in the head. He's got the plan.
Absolutely. I've always had respect for him. I've always thought that he was a very intelligent player, and it shows in his play. You know, he doesn't have to be playing these characters that can do, you know, hundreds of damage per second. He could play, you know, little Winston.
Yeah.
60 damage per second.
And he's wonderful at it. I think he's definitely one of the better ones. One of the better Winstons out there. I think doesn't he have a couple full guides on how to play him too?
A couple what? Sorry?
He has a couple full guides on how to play Winston. It's actually a lot harder than you think to play Winston at that high of a level, man. Positioning is...
you have to... Absolutely. Absolutely. And you see it a lot, you know, playing Winston. You have to be very careful with your engagements. One slip up and you feed over so much alt charge, and that particular push might be over, but that alt charge is, you know, that's still maintained by the enemy team. That still gives them an advantage going into the next fight, and the fight after that, and the fight after that. So you have to be very careful every single time you go in as Winston.
He's also definitely one of the squishier tanks, so you get blown up if you're not careful.
That's actually really funny. I'm going to be one of the many people on Reddit saying, manOFsnow, I'm a Winston main, but I'm only diamond. Tell me tips on how to get better. You know, again, so many people, you know, listening to this are going to appreciate these insights, but I'm just going to ask a quick question, sneak it in.
Sure.
As a Winston player, man, what's a good engage? What's a good? When should I jump in? You know, I don't want to feed the team ultimates. When should I jump in? When should I not jump in? You know, you kind of just touched upon it a little bit. Do I need to wait for my Zarya bubbles up before I go? We talked about getting enabled. Should be like, Zarya, is your bubble up? Okay, I'm jumping in now. I mean, is it just stuff like that?
Sure. So one quick thing, and my advice to anybody that's a Winston player, and you're in the hero selection, you know, just before you actually get out of spawn, if somebody's playing Zarya, ask them if they can play D.Va. D.Va enables Winston a lot better than Zarya does, because Zarya's bubble lasts for 2 seconds, and typically Winston players will pop their own bubble, and the Zarya doesn't get any energy. So it's actually a hindrance for the Zarya player. Now, as D.Va, though, you don't really get anything out of eating damage. You know, there's no alt charge. You know, the DM doesn't last longer, nothing like that. You can hold it over the Winston, and he takes pretty much no damage, and it's toggleable. You know, Zarya's barrier is fire and forget. D.Va can eat stuff, you know, before the bubble goes down from Winston, bubble goes down, and then it gets popped, and then you can eat after the bubble. And it's a lot more fluid, a lot more flexible when you have a D.Va on your team. That being said, when you're trying to dive the enemy team, don't necessarily dive as soon as you're through a choke or as soon as you see somebody on the enemy team. Wait and actually scout and look for a specific target. Maybe it's an Ana, a Zen, a McCree, a Soldier. Find somebody that's prone to being dove. Maybe it's a Roadhog on the enemy team. Roadhog, very good target to dive as dive. Why? Because he can just destroy your team if you don't focus him down. 2 shots on the Winston from a Roadhog will kill him. He's still got 2 shots left, and he can try to spam them into the D.Va, forcing defense matrix out. Defense matrix will last for 4 seconds. 2 of those will have to eat the 2 shots from the Roadhog. Roadhog reloads, shoots twice at the D.Va, pulls her, and she can't use the defense matrix to block any more shots. There's D.Va, there's Winston. That's the entire front line for dive, all gone because of one Roadhog.
And now you know, folks. I got the manOFsnow guide here. All in this one interview, preaching the truth. For all you people asking on Reddit how to get better, stay tuned for more.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen?
Totally.
We did see, though, Envy, back to the original topic. We did see Envy did play in Their Advocate Rumble, which just happened this last weekend. And they
Mhm.
did replace Internet Hulk with Louis.
Yeah.
At least as a sub, but there's a good chance he is going to possibly make the full roster, which I'd be very happy. Louis originally played for H2K for a little bit, and then I knew him from Colorado Clutch. I knew those guys pretty well. I love those guys. They're the best. Turns out Hamsword lives like 15 minutes away from me.
Nice.
And so I'm happy for him if he does make it onto Envious, which I think he showed up pretty well. He did a pretty good job. You saw that they, if I'm correct, they 2-0'd Selfless in that tourney, and then they did end up losing to Rogue in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
But considering we haven't really seen too much of Envy, that's pretty good. I think they did play in Apex, didn't they?
Yeah.
Season 2. And you really didn't get to see Season 1 and 2. You didn't get to see too much of them, though. If I'm correct. You got to see a lot of them between the open bracket and the playoffs that came out from Rivalcade.
Right.
So they're doing cool. They're doing good. And then another roster swap. There's been a lot of roster things going on.
Yeah,
this week,
spring
I'm not
cleaning
gonna lie.
for sure.
Exactly. Laser Kittens, who is a relatively new team. They picked up Bench Boys, if I'm correct. They're an EU team.
Yep.
They did end up picking up 2 Korean players. They picked up Munchkin, who was really the main DPS from Lunatic High. Awesome pickup from them. He's sure to do well. And then Claris. I'm not actually sure where Claris is from, what team he is from, but I'm pretty sure they all played, both those players played in Apex. I just couldn't figure out the team. And then you had an Internet Hole coaching him for like 3 days. That was pretty good too. I'm glad for that. That really helped him out.
Yeah. There's actually a really good post on the OW. I think Flame mentioned. Sorry, who is the owner of Laser Kittens?
I want to say
no, of Laser Kittens, not the OW.
Oh, of Laser Kittens. God, who is he?
Aurelius?
He was originally the manager of, I want to say, Misfits. Yeah, he was originally the manager of Misfits. I don't remember him by name though. God, what's his name?
Anyway, so there's a post, and Flame mentions him saying, "Hey, you need 6 players to play Overwatch," because they had just like parted with some of their players.
Yeah.
And then there's another screenshot, and there's like 9 or 10 people on the Laser Kittens roster, players and support staff. And it's just I don't know, it made me smirk because that I just feel like that I always, like, every day I hear something from Laser Kittens, hey, we're getting this player or this player, I've parted ways with them. Just constantly, stuff's going on their end.
Yeah, I don't know. Teams like that always weird me out just because, I mean, you see it with NRG recently, which they're a team of really solid players. You could say it's kind of like an all-star team. Kind of. But it's all about the synergy, and it's all about just playing together for a while. You saw that was like the Selfless effect, where they didn't really switch too much up on their roster, and they just kept working on their issues, and now they're in contention for top NA team, like born and raised NA team.
Right.
And so just teams that are switching out with their roster constantly, I have issues with that. And I'm just wondering, I'm like a little doubtful on performances coming out. So, I mean, best of luck, but who knows? It's really a toss of how they'll do. Right.
It's, I actually feel like there's a bit of a difference between Korean teams and North American teams. How about Western teams? Because at this point, NA and EU are feels like the same thing.
Yeah.
I feel like Korean teams tend to hold on to players more. And I agree with that strategy because Overwatch is such a team-based game. The chemistry, the cohesion allows your team to be more successful. If you're constantly swapping people around, or if you're making a new team overall at some points, you just lose a lot of ground, Even figuring out what somebody's voice sounds like. If you haven't played with them before, that sets you back. It's all. If I'm playing in a pug with Harb, okay, I know that he's gonna flank his hog. I know, Okay, I played with him. I played against him.
I think everybody
know
knows
he's going to
at this
flank.
point.
Everybody knows. Okay, so I know that when it comes time for a team fight, he's not going to be there right away. So I can't push and be aggressive. I can hold back, play my cards very safely. I can wait till he makes his appearance in the back line. He does that, and I start making noise up front, and he should be able to get a nice flank off. So, it's all these things, figuring out how your players work. That takes time. It takes, the getting enabled by your teammates. Let's say that, you have a McCree on your team, and he goes for a flashbang over a Reinhardt shield so you can hook him. The timing is different, than other players. Because, maybe your McCree that you just played with, he does it right away. But, this new McCree that's on your team, he does it, and it's like a second later than you're used to. So you, mess up your hook. That sets teams back. And those are just really small examples. You blow that up into overall team play, and there are bigger issues at hand. Maybe this new player on your team doesn't target focus as well as the other person. Hopefully target focus is better. I don't really know. Maybe his hero pool is just a little bit different. Maybe certain characters are just a little bit worse. There's all these specifics for each individual player that determine, what a team is like. And it's finding how these teams, how you can get your players to work best together. When you reach that phase, that's nirvana for a team. Selfless did that. They know what their players are good at. They know how to get their team to succeed as a team, and that's how they're one of the best right now. IMO.
No, and I'm completely with you there. You can go on, Playful.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I just think that's beautiful in sports, whether it's basketball, whether it's soccer or football or Overwatch. I think what you just said there, that's just beautiful. Cohesion, communication, and another C that you said, but that's just so cool. Chemistry, yeah, that's just 3 C's, man. That's just beautiful.
It applies to anything in competition, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so, speaking of synergy, we're gonna have to see how the synergy of C9 is with Shirt4 back in the mix. Boom. That's segue. He's back, baby. It's been a while.
Yeah. I'm excited. I've seen, so obviously, you have the Korean players on C9, or the recent acquisitions there. I'm actually slipping up. I'm forgetting the Zarya player.
Mickey? If I'm
no,
correct?
No. For C9.
For C9.
We're talking about C9 or Envious?
We're talking about C9. Why did I say Mickey? Yeah.
Zephyr?
I can
Cypher?
tell you.
I don't know.
It's Cypher, yeah, Cypher and Selly, the two Koreans.
He's played well. I think that these players for C9 that came from Korea are doing quite a good job for themselves. There's obviously this huge debate of how well how well is doesn't the NA scene stack up to Korea? I mean, really, if we pit Rogue or Selfless, what I want to see is Selfless and Immortals. I want to see them go over and do some show matches with Korean teams, with Lunatic High, with Runaway. I want to see how these teams stack up, because that's really what the scene's devolved into. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Overwatch League. That's going to be amazing.
Yes,
Seeing
sir.
all these international players come together, and I guarantee you, more Koreans are going to be coming to NA to play in the Overwatch League.
Oh, there definitely is.
Very, very. If I could invest in Korean players, I would, but I don't really know how that really works.
Well, I mean, you saw that with League of Legends too. So many Korean players came over to North America and Europe for League of Legends just because the competition is too tough over there. So I definitely would imagine seeing that just the same way. Not to try to generalize, but it seems like that culture, the work ethic there is just so much higher. And so a lot of these guys are just prepared for that level of competition with each other. And so moving over to NA and EU, they just kind of shine out over a lot of these other players.
Right. One thing with the NA scene, and this at least when I was in the game, felt a lot more prevalent. For Counter-Strike, it felt like European teams just took the game more seriously, and NA teams, just kind of wanted to be streamers. And oh, hey, we also play professionally. They wanted to be entertainment or characters before they really hunkered
Before
down
being the best, yeah.
and being the best, right? And it's that ability to just put your nose down and just grind and just do the boring, monotonous crap that you have to do day in and day out to get better. Just playing, developing game sense, developing aim, talking with your teammates, doing VOD reviews, figuring out strategies that work, figuring out what teams are doing that works, adapting that, using that in tournaments against the teams that came up with that, because they don't know how to beat their own strategy. It's that kind of stuff, that kind of like grind, that boring stuff you have to do if you want to play at the top.
I kind of just wanted to, peek on that, maybe esports as a whole, it takes all this work. It's like a full-time job, but at the same time, because the Overwatch League is not out, it's like it's kind of hard for players, like even if you're a top 500 player, good at the game, but it's hard to take it to the next level because there's no promise in that. It's not like traditional jobs or like, oh, if I study 10 amount of hours on this test, I'm probably going to do good and get a good grade. And with this good grade, I can get a job. There's some promise to that, And
Right.
esports, it's just like, man, like I'm going all in. I'm not even sure if esports can give back what I have all in, so I certainly don't blame them, but you did mention the Overwatch League, and so as a fan of esports, I want to see that, I want to see more, what's the word, infrastructure in place, structure played, so that, there's at least a promise, so it's like, there's plenty, it sounds like yourself, you're a smart dude, you know so much about the game, but, like, I feel like can just be put doubt in you, like, man, I'm going all in. I don't even know if this is gonna pay off. That to me is just like, oh boy, I don't know if I can do that.
I can't tell you how many teams I've seen break up for that specific reason. Right now in Overwatch, we're definitely in the Wild West phase, I would say.
Yeah.
There really isn't structure, just tournaments here and there, and so there isn't a lot of promise. The only thing that is promising is getting picked up by an org right now. That's the only thing that's giving players any kind of promise, and that's getting harder and harder and harder as time goes on. And so
I totally agree, actually. It's it just feels very volatile.
Super. I mean, especially when you're seeing these orgs dropping rosters as fast as they're picking them up in some cases. I mean, how many rosters have Luminosity and NRG went through?
Right.
But both of them together probably went through 6 rosters combined, 7 rosters. So it is a kind of a scary place right now for Overwatch. You're getting in on the ground floor and you're making these connections, which is so important right now. And I think in esports in general, it's a big part is being very good at the game, but about, I don't know, a quarter of that is making these connections and just even getting lucky to be at the very top level and to be getting paid for what you love to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is all the connections, and there's just straight up luck. There's just straight up, you get noticed. Somebody is watching at the right time. Maybe their kid got suspended. Some org owner, right? Their kid got suspended at school, so he has to be at home at a certain time, and it just happened. I'm bored. This guy, my son really likes Overwatch. Hey, there's a tournament. Let's turn it on. And hey, this amateur team is playing really well. I should try to contact them. It's just straight up luck, just dumb luck, and it happens, time and time again. And it's, you could listen to stories from pro players just day in and day out of how it just came down to luck.
Oh my God.
How they made it. I myself had saved up money to like try to pursue playing professionally. I was on my last month before we got signed.
Wow.
I didn't have anything left. There was no contingency. It was all over. And I just barely squeaked it out. It's scary. You hunker down, you eat rice every day or pasta every day. And it's scary to, I don't know if my best is good enough sometimes. And that happens with, I feel so many of the pro players, they can like I've said before, they can grind as hard as they possibly can, but just due to some freak accident, maybe they lose a series against a team that they should never lose against, and they get upset, and it puts people on like this permanent tilt, and then they say, oh, this guy's underperforming, and they change the roster, and then they're never to be seen again, and these rosters don't recover. I don't know. That's just like my natural instinct. That's just what I thought about.
No, we definitely appreciate that honesty, and get the insight from being a professional player yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being open on like that. We definitely appreciate that. I think many people would be able to appreciate that as well.
But
yeah, I mean, it just goes. If anybody listening, anybody is considering trying to go pro, it's not all sunshines and rainbows, or sunshine and rainbows rather. It's there's tough stuff too.
It's definitely hard. I mean, when you're competing against however many thousands of people, I mean, it's not just the people in top 500 that are trying to go pro. It's thousands of people below that too that are like, I'm going to go pro. I'm going to play every single day. And you're around just in your country probably.
Right.
And it gets so hard. But when you were talking about how it's all luck, I actually kind of want to know, how did you get signed by Kingdom? Your very first org?
I can't remember exactly. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that we played well in a tournament and we were contacted by their owners. That had happened a few times. Generally we just weren't able to negotiate terms. Is what happened. I think it just turned out that Kingdom was able to provide us with, what we wanted, in order to basically they gave us what we needed as people to just focus on the game. We were able to just not worry about a job, focus on the game, play as well as we could, and we were able, we saw, more and more improvement out of that.
Yeah, and then it just kind of built up from there, as you could obviously see. I'm not sure if you made it to when Renegades did the Team House, but I was that's at the boot camp, so there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Team houses, it's crazy. If you think your team is getting better playing, 4 hours a night, try being in a team house, screaming for 8 hours, and you will see improvements. It's astounding just how fast you can improve.
I mean, to think of that's a big thing with Selfless too. They moved into a quote unquote team house.
Yeah.
I mean, if you knew, where is it? I can't remember which player, but it's their parents' basement. That's where they play. That cracked me up. I'm not gonna say which player.
Oh, sure. I actually had no idea about that.
Yeah,
it's a parent's basement.
Yeah,
I could tell it was a basement. I just didn't know it was a parent's basement. Yeah, that's interesting.
And so that's where they play every day. I don't know if they all live there. They might. Who knows? One of their parents might be pretty wealthy, but that's when you saw the big improvement for Selfless. Until then, they were probably, I don't know, a top 20 team.
Sure.
In NA at that. And now they're debatably the best NA team. Vying between Immortals and maybe now Eastwind.
Right, yeah.
Well, EG, I should say now. By the way, we didn't even mention that. Eastwind got picked up by EG.
Yeah,
good job,
that's crazy.
Dudes. Yeah,
that's
I do get to see that. I did finally get to say that. I knew about a week ago we weren't allowed to say anything though, and they've been in a team house for around a month, if I'm correct. So when they were playing in the monthly melee, they were already in their team house. They were already signed, and so you're gonna see. I think they're gonna be up there, dude.
Yeah, they play the game very intelligently. I like how they pursue things. I see a lot of good plays from each of the players. Tanks don't overzone. Goodness gracious. DPS players never really out of position, always hitting shots. Support players, smart use of abilities. I'm genuinely potentially will be a fan of that team. I like their stuff.
I'm already a big fan. Well, I coached Okia, who's their support. He used to be an off tank.
Yeah.
And he was such a good caller. I'm like, dude, you should just call and be a support. And finally he did it, and man, they're just rocking at it. So I'm proud of those guys. They were actually all from decent, semi-professional teams too, you could say. for most of them, for the most part. I don't think I remember Goliath from anywhere, and I know Elkia never made it on any big team until then.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad to see those guys are just rocking it out, especially considering they still play. They played in ACOL last week too as EG, which was really cool of them. Probably won't see him again until finals, but that's cool. That's cool. I understand.
Yeah, totally. And not even just for the players, but the org coming in. That's a huge sign of confidence. And even when, Overwatch League isn't out yet, nobody knows what's going to happen with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, players don't know. Orgs kind of know. I'm sure a lot of the org
know
owners,
a decent bit.
Know.
Yep.
But nobody knows for sure. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. And there's a lot of uncertainty. And it shows in the players. There's stress. Am I going to have a job in 6 months?
I don't know. I think just EG, which is one of the biggest orgs in the business right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think they really only have... How many teams do they have? I know they have a Dota 2 team, which is huge.
Yeah.
They have some Street Fighter players.
They have
Street Fighter 5.
They have some fighters. They have some fighting FGC players, and I knew they used to have a league team. I don't know if they do anymore. I don't follow that anymore. But I guess it just shows, like you're saying, confidence in the game, and it's kind of a sign of longevity for Overwatch, at least esports-wise, which is good to see. I mean, I think the game is going to last forever. I mean, every Blizzard title does that they've made. I mean, World of Warcraft hasn't been redone in any sense in it's on like 12 years now? I can't remember. I think it was maybe only 10 years. Maybe it came out in between 05 and 07, but either way, that's kind of how Blizzard makes their games.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I will say is expect Mr. Rick Fox to be trying to get into Overwatch. I've seen some tweets with some jackets. Some Overwatch League jackets. I could use me one of those, man. Those are slick.
Oh yeah. I would really enjoy to have some of that gear myself.
I don't know who I'd have to, give a little something to.
Right.
For one of
if
those.
anybody's watching, I will wear that stuff on stream and promote you. Okay, please. Please help me help you.
There you go. I like it. No, I think the last thing we're going to touch on, we're a little over an hour now, which we've been spending the time pretty good, is the Overwatch Rumble, like the actual scores, which I believe they should be in the doc. Nice little link there. And I do want to say I'm surprised at Cloud9's performance. We haven't seen them play in so long.
Yeah.
And Surefour, who's definitely probably been rusty, considering Mendo was their hit scan DPS and he left. He dipped out to NRG.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that they 2-0'd Selfless, I think, was pretty big.
Yeah. I totally agree.
I was really surprised they 2-0'd. I didn't get to see the games, so I don't know if they're real lopsided, one way or the other, or some close games. But either way, I'm excited for them. I hope that they're actually able to get up there. I mean, Cloud9, huge name. Pretty much a lot of the games they're in, they are at that top echelon. So I'd like to see Cloud9 get back up there. I'm a bit of a fanboy, you could say.
Yeah, they've shown a very strong stance on, that they want their team to perform well. They've brought over talent from Korea, not just in players but in coach, in a coach. They're here, and they're wanting to be one of the better teams. They want to get back to where they originally came from before.
When they were Google Me and all that, yeah.
Right, way back when. And it's crazy. They potentially are like the future star team of NA. You get that roster scrimmage together, a month from now. They'll be competing against LG Evil. Who knows? Maybe a patch drops. Maybe a patch drops and everything changes. You know,
I mean, that's what happened to them originally. That really is once Widow got nerfed. That was the big patch that was kind of like their downfall, where they just were struggling after that. And so who knows? It could be the exact way around. I think otherwise, nothing else is super surprising. Envy lose to Rogue. They get second place, if I'm correct, or third place. because they go all the way up to the losers bracket. They win that. So that's not surprising. Even though they lost Internet Hulk, I mean, I think that a DPS role is a little bit easier to fill than a lot of the other roles. Just because the DPS usually aren't the guys that need to talk as much, need to communicate the same way.
Right.
They just need to hit their shots for the most part, outside of any special combos or things that are practice and dry runs. And as long as they can do that, they can usually do pretty well. Rise Nation, they didn't do too hot. Not surprising there though.
Right. Well, I've seen good things out of them. They've been really quiet recently.
They have,
good friends
they do
with
have
Midnight.
potential. Yeah, they have potential. I'm just waiting for something to actually ignite though. They've really been struggling recently. I like to think of them as a gatekeeper team. Like if you can beat Rise consistently, you have what it takes, kind of thing. That's how I see them, at least at the moment. Because against a lot of these other pro teams, they do seem to struggle a lot, at least in the past month and a half.
Well, I thought that they beat Selfless in like a tournament or two ago.
Did they? They might have.
I remember them beating some. I was impressed. It was a team I didn't expect them to beat.
Yeah. I want to say it might have been in last monthly Melee. Because I think I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, it's the thing is, the consistency, I think, is the issue for them. Is they can do that every so often, but they can't consistently beat a lot of these teams. It's very much like a 1/3 win-loss kind of deal.
Right. Right. And that just, that, like I said before, it can put, in place a chain of events that, who knows what's going to happen.
I don't know the details of their contract, but I mean, they're still getting in these tournaments. They're playing against these high-level players that are getting a lot of viewership. So I feel like at least their stake is being Rise. Should still be fine in there. I don't know how big Rise is as far as a org goes. If I'm correct, they were like a trick-shotting thing originally or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like they're pretty big. I feel like they've got, backing.
Okay. So I think they should be fine there. I know those guys are so nice. I remember when they were, it was something Geckos. What was
Gecko Fox?
Gecko Fox. Yeah, the meme name. It would have been so good if they got picked up by Echo Fox. I would have been so happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't entered sooner, but Echo Fox, they do like to take their time with those decisions.
I mean, even in CS, they took forever. Until they not just recently, but like 6 months ago, picked up a team when pretty much everybody else was already in the game. So, I mean, they were the first really big team that played in Arcade League tournaments that got picked up by a big org. So we were all really excited for them.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember they got signed before us. What the heck? It's not fair, man. We tried so hard.
And
they were like a kryptonite too.
Guys. You just struggled against them. Even when you were Renegades, did you have issues with Rise?
I don't think so.
Maybe not at that time.
Really well.
Yeah. Just I'm telling Team House, dude, that synergy just or boot camping even.
Yeah.
The synergy just it just gets there. I think once you meet each other face to face, you pump iron with one another and realize how weak you sweaty nerds are. It just you just connect. You just connect on another level. But then of course, Rogue losing maps only to Envious in the finals. Not surprising. Rogue is just so good right now. I think only the Koreans can really stand a chance. Western teams just all lose.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see
I'm
in
excited.
Apex. Yeah, I need to keep up with Apex better. The times are so bad, and I have such an issue remembering to go back and watch VODs.
Yeah, it is really tough. And it's hard. Like if you just want to watch it the day after, it's already spoiled. Come on, man.
Everything is. Yep.
I want to enjoy watching these games. I already know what's going to happen. Why do I watch it?
Yeah, you can't go on Reddit before you watch them. That's the issue.
Yep.
All right, my friends. I think that it's probably about time we shut this shit down, you could say. I think hour 14 minutes, pretty good. A little coaching with the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, manOFsnow.
Had fun. It was enjoyable.
It's been great. And of course, before we go, we got to plug. We're plugging. Lord Playful, do you want to plug for me? I don't want to plug.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, we just want to shout you out, manOFsnow, for taking the time and just really sharing some of the insight. It's like the tips and tricks hour here. They got a little bit insight on the current events. Just real quick before you shout out your own stuff. Just want to thank you for participating in the Athena Cup. We have a lot of teams come through. It's a place to gain tournament exposure, to gain tournament experience. And like we always say, if you want to make it to the big leagues, like Evil Geniuses now, you play through us, and it's the place to be. So on the final note there, manOFsnow, do you want to do any shout-outs for, where can people find out more about you, social media, anything you want to say?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I stream full-time. I think I have a good educational stream. I do my best to kind of explain my thought process during the games, as well as just giving general information like I was talking about in the podcast. If you'd like to check me out, I'm on twitch.tv/manOFsnow. Drop a follow and check me out. I generally go live at noon to 2 p.m. my time, which is Central, which would be 1 to 3 p.m. in Eastern. You could also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/manOFsnow. That's .com. Those are the two primary platforms that I use. I'm trying to put a little bit more content on YouTube. Again, youtube.com/manOFsnow. I keep it very simple. I recently put a Zarya jumping guide on there, which was pretty fun. I enjoyed making that. But those are the three platforms that I'm on. I'd love to have each and every single one of you viewers give me a chance and kind of check out what I got for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I follow manOFsnow, you sure shall. I can't talk right now. That was a struggle.
Yeah.
You should just follow manOFsnow too. I'm sorry
Thank
about
you.
that. I'm sorry about
Yeah, I got that same thing tonight. I can't
you
talk.
did. We're struggling. We really are.
Yeah.
That's when you know it's time to shut it down.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to plug, Lord?
Nope, I'm good here. Just
good?
Peace, love, and Overwatch. That's
Boom,
about it.
there you go. That's a good plug
Absolutely.
right there. Well, I guess I'll do myself, and then I'll do Cow League as a whole. You can follow me at JoneskiesOW on Twitter. That's about it. I just post memes and garbage. You could follow, though, Cow League on Twitter. Of course, that is the community, the Discord community we run. Great way to find other teams, other players, even if you just want to play some comp with. Probably one of the best Discords for that. Starting to get into it. It has so many people in it now. Like 17,000 people. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. Also, make sure to tune in to our tournaments. We cast them all. It's on Friday nights. Our solo queue Minutemen you can join in. That's a fantastic time. That's just some good old-fashioned memes to cast. That's the kind of thing you just pull a beer back and you just watch the shenanigans. That's on Friday nights starting at 8 Eastern. And then, of course, we have our Athena Cup A-Cole every Sunday starting at 2 Eastern as well. That is our big 5v5 tournament. That is, God, I don't want to say this. That's how EG was found. We're taking it. That's how Eastwind found EG, vice versa. We're taking credit for that. And that's maybe how you could find your org, too. Everybody deserves an org. Find yourself one at A-Cole.
Perfect.
It's God, it sounds like a dating site. An esports dating site. That's awful. But we're going to shut it down. Thank you for joining in on Operation Recall. Second episode. Episode 2. Dose. Knee. However you say it. And we're signing off.
Peace out.